Thank you for staying with us. One by one, Nigerians are fleeing the country in search of greener pastures elsewhere. It has become a trend formed into a slang called the Japa syndrome. For many people, it has become a do-or-die affair to escape from the ills of Nigeria by all means. TVC News' Inioluwa Popola went round the streets of Lagos to get the views of residents on this issue. Her report.
The Japa syndrome. This is a word that has become a household name in Nigeria, meaning, I want to leave the country. The economic downturn, insecurity, among others, has made many citizens turn their back on the country. The African Polling Institute records that about 7 out of 10 Nigerians are willing to leave the country at any given opportunity.
You work and they will pay you on time. You work and you be like, okay, at the end of the month, you should get your salary. Even before you get your salary, you've already spent your salary on transport, food. You feel me? So people feel that, why am I working? Why is it like this?
The country is not okay for people. If you go to market today, something of 100 naira, but you get down, you go in there tomorrow, it will be 200 naira. So because of everything, the government is not doing well, the insecurity. So you can't even live comfortably in your home.
Everything's getting expensive, so people are trying to flee just to get, they feel when you go there, it's quite easy and things are better at that end, but left for me is where the money is, that's where I'll stay.
You have a kid, you send them to school, spend 7-8 years in education. At the end of the day, with all the years, they come out paying them 70,000, 80,000, 100,000 for upbringing salary. Accommodation is there, feeding is there, transportation is there. I'm here in this country, but my kids with Japa, and this new generation with Japa, all the Surasoke generation are Japaning now because of the country, so I don't blame them.
For many people that leave the country, education is one way out.
And talk to them over the phone.
This is Tosin. She left the country with her family early this year in search for greener pastures. Now, the question I asked is, does the system work better over there than in Nigeria?
Why people are moving. You wonder why people are moving from the country. These are what makes people move. Let's talk about the education sector. The education sector here is top-notch. The learning environment is so conducive. You don't see students packed together. I used to tell people that you don't even need to buy a vehicle, except you just want to, you just want to show yourself, because the buses work very well. If they tell you they're going to pay you £10 per hour, that's what you get paid. You get value for your money. Not Nigeria that you work from morning to night and you are paid peanuts.
The effect of this syndrome is felt both in the family system and in the individual contribution to economic revenue. Just how many more may be forced to flee the country in search for a better life? Inioluwa Popola, TVC News, Lagos.
Joining us via Zoom is an immigration consultant, Abraham Greets. It's good to see you, Abraham. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Right. Good morning.
Now, how worrisome or otherwise is this Japa syndrome, this massive move by a majority of young persons out of the country?
First, we have to look at immigration as normal. I mean, immigration is the movement of people, international movement of people from country to country. But in our case, Japa, I would say, is the movement of Niger people from Niger to anywhere. Nigerians would like to go anywhere. But when you look at immigration in itself, in some cases, Nigerians will make a big deal of a normal thing. We are not even in the top 15 of the countries that emigrate out of their country. But what I notice with the nomenclature, what we've called the Japa, we have it as a syndrome, like it is because we're not good enough, our countries are not good enough. And some of these things are actually true. Many things are not working in the country. But even when everything was good, Nigerians will migrate. You know, when things are not good, Nigerians will. It's in our DNA, is who we are. But let me just say this to you: Nigeria is not even in the top 15 of countries that leave their country. It will shock you to know that UK itself is one of the top 3 countries that migrate out of their country. So you look at, for example, Australia, New Zealand, and these countries are filled with people that are leaving the UK so much. You know, in hundreds of people are living on a daily basis, no, thousands of people are living on a daily basis. But for us, Nigeria, anywhere there is no basic amenities, human being, you know, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when people cannot, you know, they cannot breathe normal air, you know, pollutions in the air, human being would always strive to be anywhere that lives will be better for them. And that's what you're getting in the case of Nigeria at the moment. But I tell you the truth, we are not even in the top 15 of countries that emigrate around the world.
All right. They talk about the issue of seeking greener pastures, but one would ask, how green is the pasture at the other side? Of course, you have lived abroad and you've lived in Nigeria too, so you understand the difference, and others who have traveled and seen the two sides. But when an average Nigerian, a Nigerian youth, feels that the moment he leaves the shores of Nigeria to Europe, America, Australia, or any other country, that he's going to make it big and then maybe come back someday to live large or something, is it really available like that? Is it ready-made like that for anyone to just leave and then it's El Dorado?
Well, I will say, to be honest, the pasture mostly greener in the top 10 countries that people migrate to. I'll tell you this. When I was young, I left Nigeria when I was quite young. I was a teenager when I left Nigeria. And I wouldn't say it's the Japa syndrome at the time. It was Providence that made me leave Nigeria. But I recall that I was first living in an African country. And one of my leaders in that country, in Ivory Coast, where I lived for 4.5 years, I learned to speak French. They used to preach and say to me that a lizard in Africa cannot become an alligator in America or anywhere. And I just refuse to believe that that is a truth. You know, I believe that a lizard, there are many lizards in Nigeria at the moment, or in some part of Africa, that when they get anywhere else, they suddenly become an alligator. They become better. Life becomes better. I give you an example. Some people will never ride a car in their life, you know, normally because they're just in Nigeria. But you just move to America, you move to states like maybe Atlanta, you move to Texas. Even if they cost you in your family, there is a generational cost for you not to drive a car. You can't live in those countries and have the right paper and not drive, because you're going to work and you'll kill yourself working. So naturally, some of these things, or you live in Canada, where I am at the moment, you cannot live there for a year, you know, unless you're in Toronto, in the main city, and not have a car. You find that the pasture is actually greener, and we can also create it back home. But my point this morning also is, even if Nigeria is like New York, we have it intrinsic in an average Nigerian. This started from, you know, Genesis 11. Nigerians will always Japa. I believe when the first Japa happened in Genesis, you know, in the Holy Scripture, I believe that the man that led that Japa was a Nigerian, Nimrod.
Interesting. You have mentioned something, the aspect of peer pressure. We have seen, you know, some persons who have not really been prepared for this move. We've seen a report where some other doctors that, you know, moved out of the country were complaining of the pressure of work and all of it. But let's look at the other side with regards to Nigeria, the adverse effect, the brain drain this is having. How do we mitigate all of these matters?
I think it's something we should be proud about, to be very honest to you. Indian sense, I mean, you have 17.9 Indians living abroad. You have about 11.1 Mexican living abroad. You have about 10.8 Russians living abroad. You have 8.5 Syrians living abroad. Nigeria, we are a pride of the world. Everywhere we go, we are impacting the society. And like one comedian in Nigeria, I think it's Oke Bakassi, who once said, when the slave trade, we were not ready at the time when they came taking us. Right now, slave trade is going on again because, but we are paying for it in the fact that these countries have need. They have genuine need of doctors, of nurses, of experts. In fact, in Canada right now, they're looking for plumbers, they're looking for electricians, there is a huge shortage of these skills. And because we are such a populous nation, we have these people in millions of them. So when people travel, it's justified. In return, they actually return to the country. Unlike our own immigration policy, where someone will work in Nigeria for 16, 17 years and they cannot get citizenship. In some of the countries that we migrate to, in 3, 4 years, we have become citizens of that country. And guess what happens to Nigerians? If we go back, I've left Nigeria since 1997, but there are only 2 years in about 26 years that I've not been to Nigeria, 1998 and 2008. Sometimes some of you know me in the studio. Sometimes I'm in Nigeria 7 times in a year. Nigerians love their country. We come back home. Our Japa syndrome is not like we go away, like some countries, I won't mention names. Some countries, they leave their country and they never even look back. 40 years, they've never even gone back to their country. Nigeria, we're a blessing to the world. We're a blessing to transportation, aviation, to everything, because we contribute to the GDP of the world. Just because we move, we're hyperactive. We are just name it. But in terms of the brain drain on our country, this is what our government needs to say. Like the topic that you were handling before on education. Our country needs to, first of all, provide, number one, the basic amenities for all Nigerians to thrive. Electricity, water. When an average Nigerian can see that, the environment is conducive for them, at least they know that I'm going abroad for 4 days or 5 days. Our fathers, when they traveled in the 60s, they went back home. I remember my uncle used to say something to me that my dad would say, Omonle Okinsunta. That means that the child of the owner does not sleep abroad. At that time, they were begging them to take citizenship for £2. You register to be a British citizen for £2, and rather they will go back home. They'll go back home. So we will still travel, but we should create an environment that is conducive for us also to thrive at home. There's no amount of doctors that leave Nigeria. There are still more than enough doctors in Nigeria because we have a very good education system, but we do not have a good facility to maintain this system going. We are very good educators in Nigeria, and we speak English. Now, here's another fact. You see, create a language in Nigeria today, maybe our broken English or our Yoruba, our Hausa, or our Igbo. Make that an international language today. You'll find that people would want to be coming to Nigeria. Because the English came and they colonized us. No matter where they speak English, we will always want to go there. People want to go near the language, the source of the language they speak. The other thing is that we are now shaping culture around the world. Afrobeat is going all over the world, and we cannot quantify the impact of this, around the world. People now want to go to Nigeria because they want to see a Davido, they want to see a Burna Boy, they want to see a Wizkid, they want to see. So the more of this global resources we give to the world, the more the world will also want to come to us. I hear that Lagos has just been given an international, the license to build a airport. If we make that airport like Dubai airport, like Doha airport in Qatar, guess what? Most people in Africa will just to travel to go to Nigeria, just to see the airport, just to see the borders. If we understand what it is to make our country, to industrialize our country, people will come in. And if I can say this on another note, we have one of the worst immigration policy in the world. Very wacky. In fact, I don't even think our immigration policy, like I've touched on it before. You see, do you know the number of Americans, millionaires that are Black, that can come back into Nigeria to invest? If we open an investment route for them, maybe you invest $100,000 or $1 million, and then you get citizenship, you find a route back. Or do you know the number of innovations that will come? But as a nation, we're very insular. We are so Nigerian, but yet we go everywhere in the world. We see that the world is diverse. Almost every other country you go to South Africa, you see people from all over the world on the street. But Nigeria, we're just Nigerians. Everywhere you go, we are the people. We need to open up our country for internationalization. Then the Japa syndrome will reduce in our head. We need to understand that global has become the new local. So we need to open up Nigeria with our immigration policy. We need to make it easier for people to come into Nigeria and get citizenship and invest and live. You can't be living in Nigeria 16 years and still be begging immigration to get permanent residency. Or there are people that are married to Nigerians now for 20 years, living in Nigeria, and they don't have citizenship. It's a very bad policy.
All right, like you say, we're all global citizens now, so we see the world from that perspective. But the narrowing it back to the Japa syndrome, the percentage of people who are leaving in that context are young people who, some of them don't have an idea of what the world is. The idea they have is based on what they are told, or some of the movies they've watched, or some of the pictures they see, or some of the conversations that go around. But let's break it down. What factors should these young people consider before the drive, before the stepping out in the context of leaving the country? What should they consider? What questions should they ask? What should they find out? How should they prepare themselves before the journeys?
I think the first thing that a person that wants to migrate out of Nigeria should ask them is to understand the different type of visas that there are. Because this is the mistake that most people made. You know, an average person trying to leave because of obscurity, because of lack of job, because of lack of electricity and all that, they're just looking, like you said, Japa. And, you know, Nigeria has changed a lot. In those days, in the 90s and the early 2000s, people would believe that I can pay somebody 1 million and they know somebody inside the embassy. I can say to Nigerians today, at least the top 3 countries or most of the countries, if somebody say to you they know somebody inside Canadian embassy or US embassy or British embassy, I can say to you that it is, 99.9% untrue. Because, it used to be in those days that maybe some of these connections, the 0.1% that I left is because at eye level, at a very, very high level, like a Dangote, like the president, the vice president, like the diplomat, sometimes, yes, they can make a call and then affect things. But normally what you want to do is to understand, what am I going there to do? Am I migrating to study? Am I migrating to settle? And then you find out on that country's website or on Google, you know, what are the different routes of migrating into this country? Let me say this to you. UK, Canada, US, Australia have a type of visa for every type of Nigerian, including the uneducated ones. And you don't have to lie about your application. You don't have to change your name. You don't have to change your age. The world has gone different. Every passport around the world now is electronic information. So once you've gotten a Nigerian passport once, it's very difficult for you to go back and be changing. But there are still people, immigration consultants or friends or people, who are still deceiving people and still telling them to change, tell them they work where they're not working, produce bank statement that is not genuine. You will jeopardize your opportunity. Now, and the thing there is that, and I want to say this clearly to Nigerians, it is better for you to build your immigration track on honesty. Because one day, even if you lie to travel, you may get trapped where you have traveled because you can't live up to lies for too long in life. Sometimes it comes back to catch up on you. The next thing you want to say to yourself is that, how long am I gone for? And I know that this question may sound unrealistic, but you have to. I left Nigeria at 19. When I was going into Ivory Coast, I have a threshold of how long. I knew I was going there. I had some opportunity, and I said to myself, I'm going to learn the language. Today, I speak French as good as my English. Sometimes, at some point in my life, I think even my French was better than my English. It was a goal. When I was leaving, 20-something years to go for the UK, I had a goal. When I went into Ireland, I had a goal. So you have to have a goal. What are you achieving there? Now I live in Canada. I have a goal. I can't leave Canada until I get my PhD. My wife, get a PhD. So you've got to get a goal of what you want to achieve. And, if you don't also want to come back, you have to tell yourself, look, I'm not coming back. But I tell you this, majority of Nigerians will come back. The next thing that you really want to look at is that look at your health and look at the country that you are going to and look at is this country fitting for my health? Some of us have pre-existing health conditions. Maybe you cannot live in cold, or you can live in cold.
All right.
So you cannot live in cold.
Abraham, we need to quickly go on a commercial break. We'll have to put you on hold. When we return, we'll continue in this conversation. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We've been looking at the Japa syndrome. We're talking about a lot of Nigerians live in the country in search of greener pastures. And we have been speaking with an immigration consultant, Abraham Great. Abraham, thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, you were talking to us about factors young people should consider before leaving the country.
Yes, I said the first thing, you have to understand the different categories of visa, and that for every person, there is a type of visa that can help you to migrate to one country or the other. Most people only know about visitors visa, but I say to you that the easiest kind of visa to get into most top countries around the world is student visa. The UK, for example, will grant maybe more than 95% of student visas. This is because it's contributing to their economy. Nigerians will travel to the UK, to the US, to Canada, to Australia to study. We contribute to the GDP of those countries by bringing money in there too. And we also work. So I was also saying that you have to look at your health and look. It doesn't mean that you can't go to a country that is cold or what have you, but at least learn about it and see how to prepare yourself for that. The other thing is you have to sit down and count the cost. How much is it going to cost me? And be very, very careful about putting that cost together and don't pay unnecessary fees. During those days, we used to charge a lot of money as immigration consultants, with a lot of staff. But a lot of the information that you need is actually available on YouTube for free. So many people are giving this information on a daily basis. So no matter where you think you want to go, you can go on YouTube, you can learn how to prepare that application. If you're looking at the UK, if you're looking at Canada, if you're looking at the US, there are experts, people who have experienced the same thing you want to experience on YouTube, who actually, show you step-by-step guide on how to do it. If out of all of that, you still cannot handle it yourself, then you can go to an immigration consultant. You can pay them and then make sure that they are competent enough. But I will say, and I will reiterate this, please, do not make anybody make you falsify your information, your date of birth, your names, tell you that you are who you really are not. As a Nigerian, I'll tell you this, it does not work. We have seen many destinies ruined, many lives, many marriages ruined because of this. And it's disheartening when you see your fellow countrymen going through some mess that they've created just because they want to japa or they want to travel. I can guarantee you this. If your goal is to travel and you want to do it the legitimate way, if you give it a shot, it will happen. Most countries need anybody. It doesn't matter what you do. Either you work in a TV station or you work and you're selling pepper somehow. If you really sit down and you give it a thorough research, you can actually migrate. The other thing is that you have to consider to integrate, because most of us, when we're traveling, we actually do not think. What we're thinking about is, I'm going into a country, I'm looking for Nigerians, but you actually have to think about going into a country and integrate with the people in that country. You have to really be conscious of it, that when I get into this country, I want to learn about the people, I want to learn about the culture, because that is how you can come back and bring culture, bring something back home that you can impact your own country.
That aspect of reintegration is a major challenge for a lot of persons who have left the country. And then there's also the aspect of some persons running into trouble from the reports that we saw recently, where doctors were complaining of long hours and indiscriminate deductions from their salaries. I wonder what kind of advice you want to give such persons who perhaps have run into one trouble or the other.
Okay, first of all, doctors all over the world do long hours. There's shortage of doctors all over the world. Either it's in the UK, in France, in Germany, in Canada, in the US. That is why doctors can never be poor if you are really a doctor, not that you falsified the information to be given prescriptions and you made your way abroad. So most doctors who complain about long hours and so you have to get used to it or don't get into the field. I have a lot of friends and relatives who are in the medical profession, and you have to know that there are pros and cons of every, but also you always, and please don't undermine this, no matter your profession, when you get into a country, one of the first things that you look for is a mentor, someone who has done what you want to do or who has been in the career that you're going into, who can actually mentor you, show you the way or the road. So God has helped me. I've been so successful in the UK for the last 20 something years. But I recently moved to Canada to fulfill my wife's dream. But I still got here. I still have to get mentors. Yeah, I have everything that I need to thrive in this country because I've been coming here for a long time. But in almost every aspect of my businesses, I have different businesses. I have to get different mentors who, okay, I sit down with and who will coach me, who will speak to me on how to go. You can avoid a lot of pitfalls by having people, not just talk mates, intentional, intentionally finding a mentor. Sometimes you have to pay for them, other times they are free. If you're looking for a free platform, then join a platform like a church or a mosque. Join a set of people, let them know that you are now in the community. And that should not just be because you're in Nigeria, you're going to only a Nigerian church. A Nigerian church can help you, your people will rally around you. But sometimes you can go into a multicultural church also, and then you mix with different kind of people, you hear different kind of information, you integrate with different kind of people. And also, this may sound funny to you. One of the ways to actually integrate is that when you travel, stop trying to convert naira to pounds. I call it money mindset. Because if you do that, you will live the first few years of your life in depression. When you look at, I'll give you an example. When I left Africa into UK 22 years ago, but the first time I was to barb my hair was £6. When I calculated it, I went inside Agos, I bought a clip and started barbing myself. But after a while, life changed. I have a barber in UK. When I go to Canada, the first haircut I had cost me almost $60. So you have to understand some of those things integrated, and you have to also, find a way to acclimatize to this thing. Change your mindset. If it's $60, it's $60. It's either I barb myself, or if I can afford it, don't complain about it. Find the kind of food that people eat in the country. Don't be looking for Gary and what have you and you're in Saskatchewan, for example, or you're in Alberta, and you spend the last 2 months looking for where you can eat eba or what have you. In some way, get ready to integrate into the country that you're looking for, and that is going to help you. Drink their water, pick up their accent, their dictions, as many things that you can pick as quickly as possible. All of these things will give you access into the heart of people who employs, people who can help, people who can give you a hand. But if you just remain who you are, Baba Ijebu coming into Canada, you are going Ijebu people, before you can curate them together, it's going to be long. But integrate with your neighbors, integrate with people that, you see around you.
All right. Abraham, a lot of persons say that as Nigerians travel and leave the country now, like you say, they will mingle with other people, learn new things, integrate, connect, network, and become professionals. And someone was saying that this could be blessing in disguise for Nigeria someday, when Nigeria will become a better place than it is right now. I wonder if you see this mass exodus or the feeling of emigrating from the country is a blessing in disguise for Nigeria when it comes to potential professionals someday.
Mr. Mike, I'll say this to you, that this has been happening from time immemorial. If you recall what happened in the 70s, yeah, even though I was born in that century, but some of our parents and grandparents had traveled years before. But when it came back in the 60s, the 70s into Nigeria, look at what happened with like of Nitel, Nipost, and all the industries that they created at that time. And also right now, look at the tech industry in Nigeria. Nigerians are consistently coming back home and contributing to the country. And I tell you, the future of Nigeria lies in its diaspora, because no problem can be solved at the same level that it was created. Nigerians' future lies, maybe not solely in its diaspora, but there is an emergence of something yet on top. You can't imagine what it will become when we legislate or we pass the bill to allow Nigerians to be able to vote, or to be the economy of Nigerians in the diaspora can be linked directly. This way, it is indirectly, can be linked directly to the development of Nigeria itself. Japa is a blessing, a massive blessing to any country. So Nigeria is a big blessing. Something is about to happen in Nigeria. No matter who wins the election, no matter what it is, Nigeria will only get better. But as a people, we are so, Mr. Mike, you know me well. My slogan is, it is working. An average Nigerians, we complain a lot. There is complaint in every country. Canada has the highest inflation record in history. UK is having it bad. We've changed prime minister in the last few years. I mean, everybody hates their president, their what have you at the moment. But Nigeria, we blame them, we castigate them, we destroy them, we do everything. Right. Everything we're complaining about, we've been complaining about them. But we have to be patriotic about our country and see that the future is bright and begin to speak positive concerning our country.
Definitely. We need to be patriotic. That's the message, basically, from this conversation. We must thank you, immigration consultant Abraham Greed, for your time on the program.
Thank you.